Are you struggling with persistent hip pain? You're not alone. Hip pain can be a debilitating issue affecting your mobility and overall quality of life, but I don't have to explain that to you. What's really behind it? Why do so many treatments seem to fall short? And most importantly, how can you find relief? In this video, we're going to dive into the common causes of hip pain, why most conventional treatments do fall short, and what might be missing from your approach. But don't worry, there is hope. Stay tuned to unlock the secrets to managing and overcoming your hip pain. All right, good news. Right in my hands, I have the first proof copy of the new book, Stretch and Release, that I'm releasing on September the 1st. This is the first proof copy, so we've got some work to do to make sure we get this thing perfect for you. And it'll be available on September the 1st on Amazon. So right now, that's where we are with that. And so hopefully you'll get this and it'll help you. Now, what's in this book? What's in this book is so many of the things that I talk about. It talks about the causes and why people have the stiffness and the aches and pains. It talks about why traditional treatments typically fall short. It talks about the nutrition and how that can affect your joints and how you feel in your body. And the last 3 or 4 chapters in this book is going to be about the most common aches and pains that people have, with the exercises that you can follow and do at your home. Now, the benefit of this is it works right along with my YouTube channel, so that if you're not quite getting it by reading it, you can go to the YouTube channel, find those videos, and then that will then give you the visual you can see to make sure you're doing them right. The purpose of this book is not to make me famous. The purpose of this book is to get you out of pain. Think of this as a manual. There's places you can put notes in here if you like to do that as well. So keep in mind that this is coming out September 1 on Amazon, and I'd love to get this into your hands and help you stop your daily pains. Thank you. Welcome back to the Muscle Repair Shop. Today we're going to talk about hip pain. What causes that pain, that hip to hurt? Why do most treatments fall short? And more importantly, how can you finally get rid of this nagging pain? So let's dive right in. Let's talk about what causes it to happen. So hip pain, as I said in the intro, can be a very debilitating thing. It can stop you from walking up and down stairs, literally walking, period. So that affects your mobility and greatly affects your life. And for some people, it can be very painful to sit for long periods of time, like in a traveling or a road trip or something like that. And other people, it's very painful to stand any amount of time. What you'll find is that you'll see people who are walking with canes and they're leaning forward, or they're leaning over a buggy because now the hip pain has developed into low back pain, as if the hip pain wasn't enough. So let's get into what's causing that hip to hurt the way it does and give you a better understanding of what you're up against here. So most hip pain, while the pain is in the hip, rarely starts out with a hip problem. Most hip pain becomes more of a muscular problem. Now, over time, if the muscle problem is not addressed, it will start to damage things like the labrum around the hip joint, which is like a rubber gasket around where the ball goes into the socket of your pelvis. It can actually, the muscles can actually tilt the pelvis forward, putting it at an odd angle. On top of that, when you try to stand up straight or stand up for longer periods of time, that tilting forward can cause back pain. On the other hand, the muscles on the back of the thighs can actually cause the pelvis to tilt backwards. And again, that's putting the hip joint in an odd position. And you can actually create back pain when you sit for long periods of time, and hip pain as well. So the thing is that it's the positioning of your posture, it's the positioning of your pelvis that plays a massive role into that hip pain happening. So what causes that to happen? Well, there's several things here. Number one, if you sit for long periods of time, there's muscles on the front of the hips called hip flexors, and then there's muscles on the front of the thigh and also in the inner thigh. The ones on the front of the thigh are called quads, and of course there's inner thigh muscles there, and there's 4 muscles in each of those groups. When you sit for long periods of time, those muscles begin to tighten on you. And so when they tighten on you as you start to stand up, and the muscles are not releasing, and so therefore the pelvis tilts forward, putting again the hips in a weird angle at that point. On top of that, because those muscles come down and attach below the knee itself, over time can actually develop into knee pain as well. On the backside, you have the hamstrings, where there's 3 muscles there. They attach at the base of the pelvis and they come down and then attach below the knee. When those muscles get tight, because you don't have the flexibility to bend over and touch your toes, for instance, when they get tight, it pulls the pelvis backwards, having the same effect, just in the opposite direction, on the spine itself, but more importantly, on the hip joint itself. Now, if either one of those things occur, with that hip joint being at an odd angle, when you try to do something to exert yourself, the risk of tearing the labrum, which is like a rubber gasket around that joint, can be torn and damaged, which then would require surgery. Now, the most surprising one, the third one, is actually the calves of your lower leg. When the calf muscles are tight, the ankle itself can't bend as far. That's going to cause you to have a shorter stride. And of course, we've talked about that in other videos about the calves and how to walk correctly. But by the ankles not being able to bend to have the appropriate stride as you're walking, this is going to cause you to walk more with the muscles on the front of your thighs, the quads, which again will tighten, which again will turn the pelvis forward, which again will cause hip pain and later into back pain, and believe it or not, even neck and shoulder pain. So it's like a domino effect at some point. Now, so when we get into why do traditional treatments fail, or fall short, I should say, what happens there is that they are trying to solve the symptom. Your hip hurts. So if your hip hurts, their goal, because of their education and training, is how to stop that pain so that you can be out of pain. That's their goal. And I understand that. There's nothing wrong with that. We all want people out of pain. But if you take painkillers over the counter and then later wind up getting the stronger painkillers, maybe you even get into injections as well, it will stop the pain. But make no mistake about it. Nothing physically has changed about your body except that the signaling to your brain that you have pain from your hip has been blocked, you see. And so what we want to do is find a way that we can change you physically so that the body can readjust itself and actually go back to work better. Now, for some people, they'll go to chiropractors, and chiropractors do a wonderful job. They will adjust you, put you back in place, and momentarily you'll feel great. But for some of you, you may notice as quickly as you get back home, the pain starts to come back again. What happened? Well, again, they put the bones in place because the muscles that are tight in your thighs and even in your hips have pulled those bones slightly out of place, causing pain. I mean, it can lead to things like disc herniation, bulging disc, pensioners, all kinds of damage to the joint itself. And they're doing a great job getting you back in place. But the mistake on your part is that not understanding that the muscles themselves are going to pull their work right back out and put you back to where you started from. Then you go to strength training. So if you go to physical therapy, you go to the gym and you think, well, if I make my body stronger, get my back stronger, get my hips stronger, I can force myself to stand up straighter. Keep in mind that the muscles on the front of your thighs are like rubber bands. If you twist those rubber bands over and over and over, the rubber band gets shorter and shorter, tighter and tighter, then you cannot develop enough strength in your back and your hips to pull those muscles to their elongated state and actually hold it there for any long length of time, because the muscles on the backside will start to fatigue out, causing more pain there. So it's not a strength training issue, it's a high tension issue into those muscles. And you can easily see it in so many people that complain of hip pain and sometimes low back pain, is that they're slightly bent over forward, or you may see them walking with a walking stick that they've bent over forward, or if you see in grocery stores, people down with their arms on their shopping cart, because standing up is just too painful. So that's where those things are coming from, and that's why so many times the common treatments for hip pain really fall short, because we're trying to solve the symptom and not really understanding the cause. So the thing I've always said about muscles on these videos It's wherever the pain is when you're dealing with muscles, the cause is almost always on the other side or the opposite end, because it always has a domino effect. Our muscles are about balancing our body from our feet all the way up to our head. And so what we want to understand here is by keeping those muscles softer, keeping those muscles with less tension in them, then when you do that, now when the chiropractor adjusts you, the bones can stay in place. And if any other thing happens, your body has the ability and is equipped to be able to handle those situations. So let's get into things that you can do that's going to help you with that. I have a couple of exercises that you can do along with the tennis ball massage. So the first one will be the hip flexor exercise, and the second one will be the quad stretch exercise, and then the third one will be the tennis ball. So let's get right into that. Once you've done this 10 times, now what you're going to do is you're going to move this knee, the knee down here, in about 2 inches, because you want to get to the second hip flexor. And you're going to repeat that stretch 10 more times. Then when you get done with that, you're going to move this same leg in another 2 inches to get to that third muscle, the gracilis here. So as we start to stretch this, you see, you want to keep this torso straight, and you want to lean forward as you come through this way. So for most people who have hip pain or hip issues like that, creating pain that's not a damaged joint, what you're going to find is this stretch will probably help you most of the time. Okay, this is the quad stretch. Now the focus is to stretch the quad up here at the top part. So this is where you want to feel this stretch. And it's actually going to be more of a release of tension instead of stretching the muscle, just to be clear about that. For some of you, you can grab your ankle this way and then pull the knee behind you. For others of you, your arm might not be long enough to get to your ankle. So use your yoga strap or a rope. And what you're going to do here is put it around your ankle this way. And see, then you can take and pull this behind you with the strap just like that. If you can't bend your knee enough to get your heel to go to your hip, then what you can do is use the strap and just have the leg at 90 degrees. You'll still get some release of tension up here, which will help you stand up straighter, and over time, it'll help you do that much better. Now, most of the time when I'm doing this on my own, I'm laying completely flat like this, grabbing my ankle like that, breathing out as I pull the leg behind me, hold it for that 5 seconds, release it, and come back. And then I repeat that 10 times. And oh, by the way, make sure you do both legs. I know sometimes people think if there's only one side that hurts, I only need to do that one side. Chances are the opposite leg is causing a problem too. So be sure to do both legs. Okay, in this one, I put a tennis ball inside of a sock. Now, the reason I choose the sock is because if I drop it, I don't have to chase it. And when I'm working on the upper body, I can throw it over my shoulder, so I use the sock as a handle. But in this case, we're going to focus on the hip itself. And so what I want to do here is put the ball between my hip and the wall. You can see it back there, hopefully. And I'm not going to roll on it. You'll see people in the gym doing this all the time. That has no value. What we want here is to use the ball to try to find sore spots. So I'm going to check one spot at a time. I'm going to press in, don't feel anything, move to the next spot, press in. I feel a little bit there. What I want to do is maintain that pressure with the ball. All the ball is doing is telling me where the sore spot is. That's it. You don't need a cue ball, you don't need a lacrosse ball, or any special ball that vibrates or talks to you or anything like that. A simple tennis ball, you can get for like $3 or $4. Use that in the sock, and it's just going to identify where the sore spot is. When you find that, breathe out and allow that muscle in your hip to relax. Now, sometimes you may have to do this 2 or 3 times, but in most cases, that single breathing out and letting it relax is going to cause the muscle to soften, pain go away. Now, this sounds very simple, and for most people, it becomes probably the hardest one of all of them that I teach people to do, because it's learning how to be aware of your body and how to get those muscles to release. Now, secondly, you can take the ball and go sideways on your hip like this here, just like I have it there. And what we're working on are the hip rotating muscles in here. And again, you're going to work up and down the hip, one spot, at a time. And the goal here is to soften those muscles so that the hip is as soft as cotton candy. So the beauty in these three things, the hip flexor, the quad stretch, and the tennis ball massage, is that it literally starts to open up the muscles that are putting the pressure on the hip itself. And if you don't have damaged hips so far, what you can do is prevent that from happening down the road. A lot of times hips, joints that are damaged will long-term affect tight muscles around those joints and not having the flexibility that we're supposed to have. Too many times people forget about the flexibility. And what I would say to you about strength training and flexibility is, think of strength training, lifting weights, doing body weight things, as the gasoline in your car is giving you power. Think of the stretching and the self-massage as the lubrication, like oil in your car, which is lubricating the valves and so forth, allowing the car to run much smoother without burning up the engine. Truth of the matter is, if you leave one out, the car is going to stop. Well, the same is true for your body. So make sure that you keep that lubrication in your body so that you can live a happier, healthier life and not have to deal with the pain that most people are dealing with today. So if you like what you saw, please don't forget to subscribe down below, ring the bell, and always leave me comments, because I'd love to get back and talk to you about what's going on in your life. And if there's any way I can help you, I'm always happy to do that. For now, see ya. I hope you enjoyed this last video. Be sure to click on the video here to my left and enjoy.